So this is my rental car. So I'm getting packed up for my trip to LA. It looks like I am going to make it to ECPR. I'm going to leave tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. But this is some of the stuff I'm packing, and some of the stuff I carry with me always down here. I always carry my phone charger because I'm making videos or editing them or so many different things on the phone. So I don't like to run out of charge, and sometimes, depending on what I'm doing on my phone, it can run out pretty quick. And I always have my headphones and an extra charge for my phone separate. And I love my little macro lens. It's super awesome, and I like to capture small little things being cool. And I'm always carrying with me my zap straps. I have two because I can strap one around my wrist and one around an object and tie them together and be quite secure, or I can use just one and tie it around my wrist. And then there's just enough Seroquel to knock me out cold, as well as 2 trazodone as well, if I ever get in the position where I just want to knock myself out and lay there. It's a total emergency, never had to use it, but I find it helps me feel safe. And this is like a little towel, a little travel towel. I always forget to use it. I haven't ever put myself in the habit of using it. If there's oranges around, might want an orange peeler, a little mini knife. I used to eat avocados, so I'd open it with the knife and then eat it with this mini spoon. But I don't think I'll bring these or this. But I do have them in my bag. You may or may not want your own little plastic fish. I will have a bathtub at the hotel, so I might want to bring this. Probably not. I'll put it in the to-go pile. And my love whistle. Maybe I will bring this. And I always have chapstick with me, so these are always with me. And my rental car keys. I probably only need to bring one. And a water bottle. Somebody gave this to me. It's the one thing I didn't bring with me to California, and I hadn't bought one yet. And then somebody gave one to me, and it's for hot and cold. So that's awesome. Synchronicity. And I always carry a hanky because I have a runny nose so bad. So I use this when I can. And so like chapstick and hanky are like the most important things in the whole thing. And then probably the charger. And then probably the lens. Well, this is always going to be with me since I've had a bit of struggle. And last night I did okay on the half Seroquel and 1 trazodone, as well as lithium. And I will do that when I'm in LA as well. And I have my passport in case I need it. And my wallet with some money and credit cards and ID and stuff. And then this is my Hearty Nutritionals for the time I'll be away for 3 times a day. And this is the book that I read that I told you about. And it makes me a little bit inspired to write a book and just create a little something of information about what it's like to stay in a psych ward or something like that. And earplugs, I wear those every night. And this is really important. Super important, squeaky fart putty. I probably won't bring that to the workshop though. But it might help if I was supporting somebody and they're talking, they're distressed, I would just go. There we go. That's the motion. I won this as a prize. It's very awesome. So anyway, and I have some snacks, I have some cosmetics, some clothes, my my medication, which I'll probably just take enough. I'm not going to take all that. And my new notebook. So I was listening to a talk, and I haven't listened to all of it, but it was by Matthew Federici, and he was talking about some studies where people with the best outcomes, that are patients, are mindfully non-adherent. And I love that term. And it definitely describes me, and it describes what I was trying to be when I was in the psych ward last year. I was trying to be mindfully non-adherent, but unfortunately that doesn't always work in the psych ward when a person is certified and has no say whatsoever, unless the doctor actually happens to listen, which didn't happen in my instance. And he said it's the highest level of self-advocacy when somebody has a belief system and they speak up about treatments they would or would not want. And it has actually been studied, so it's not something just made up. And I heard somebody before say they read a study that people who were non-compliant actually did better in the long term. Which just shows we know best, and we know what's best for ourselves and what resonates and what doesn't. So yes, mindful non-adherence. And I'm really hoping that eCPR helps with that sort of approach and gives more space for mindful non-adherence, because there's more other types of support, so one can further the range of one's mindful non-adherence. So I'm going to bring this book tomorrow, just maybe to show people, or I'm not sure what'll happen. But I'm spending the day looking at some stuff to just get back into that mode somewhat. I still have my blue feather, and tonight I'm going to go to a full moon meditation at this meditation place, and the full moon time tonight is exactly 9:09 p.m. where I am, and the ceremony or the meditation is from 7:30 to 8:30 or something, so I wonder if I'll get to be up there while it's the actual full moon. And another part of the significance of this is that it's full moon in Aries, and probably because it's the Aries time of the year. And the thing for me is that I am an Aries. My birthday is in a week. So it's really cool to be able to go to this full moon meditation where there's wishes of peace for the world. Whereas last year at this time, not only was I not in California, I was incarcerated in a psych ward. So it's amazing to 1 year later be living my dream. Not perfectly, because I'm taking some Seroquel to get by right now, and probably taking it even more because I'm not at home with my network of support. But I'm here partly to heal and partly to move towards facilitating bringing more of a network of support to my hometown. eCPR is not yet in my country, and it would be amazing to be able to bring it. So I'll be talking more about that, I think, because by this time tomorrow I'll probably have an idea about if I'm going to do that. And I probably will, even if I'm not quite certain, because who knows what will expand out of it. But it's pretty amazing because this time last year I wasn't sure if I was going to turn 34. Part of that whole people who die at 33, like Kurt Cobain and other celebrities, even though I wasn't thinking of myself as a celebrity, I was just thinking, I really don't know if I'm going to make it to 34. I almost ran away from the hospital one of the days, and who knows what would have happened to me if I would have done that, because they probably would have locked me up in isolation and things. But it was so terrifying to get through, even when I decided not to run away. It was just the scariest 33 days of my life. And this time last year, that's what was happening. I spent my birthday in the psych ward. In previous days, I voted in the psych ward. Done some weird things in the psych ward. And it seems like this year I won't celebrate my birthday in the psych ward. And I'm not in this place where I'm thinking that I don't know if I'm going to live another day, whether it's by my own hand or it was just the most terrifying thing. If you've been through it, you know what I'm talking about. It's so scary, and it was made worse by the medication, and that's why I will never go back of my own volition. I will never go back there on my own 2 feet. And this is a blessing in disguise, because this will make me extra diligent. And it has made me extra diligent. Another thing I want to do with this car, and I'm not sure if I will, it depends on how I feel being away for a night in LA for ECPR. But I'm thinking about driving to Vegas for one night to see Celine Dion. And the reason is because when I was first hospitalized and diagnosed, when I was out of the hospital, I spent a lot of time just watching her videos, her world tour video, and then her live in Boston video. For some reason, I was just completely entrained and just watching her sing and also be silly with people on her tour, and everything just really helped me. It was very grounding, and I don't know why Celine Dion. It just sort of was something that I found very calming. And because of that, I've wanted to go and see her in Vegas, and I tried to in 2014, I think it was, but she actually ended up canceling her show. But I went to Vegas anyway, but I didn't see her. And my sister's going to be kind of mad at me, but I'm not going to tell her because she would definitely be mad that I'm going without her. And I am too, but the thing is that the way things are with my brain, I never know if I'm going to get back to the States again. I don't know if when I go back and I get back into advocacy and mental health somewhat, if my brain might freak out and I might end up, who knows, like I really don't know how much longer I'm going to live. I could live another 50 years, I could live another 2 days, I really don't know. So knowing that, I kind of want to go. It's a 5-hour drive, and I really like driving more so than flying. So I'm wanting to go, and we'll see how it goes if I do end up making the trip, and I will tell her later. And it just feels like somewhat of a completion in a way of going and seeing her and honoring that energy, seeing her live. And I don't really create that many goals per se, but that was one I created just as one of those bucket list things. But I don't want it to be a bucket list thing. I want it to be an acknowledgement of the journey, of making it from the place of sitting there hopeless, watching her and feeling somewhat calm, to being able to go and see her live in Vegas. And another thing I'm realizing with this putting less attention into the self-dialogue of insights is that it's moving towards that embodied thing I was talking about, but I sort of ignored in favor of continuing to just talk about abstractions. It's helpful context, but I could create that forever, and that might be to the detriment of my physical body, and I feel like I need to be strong. I need to be strong for the journey ahead, the next part of the journey, in being embodied in such a way that it might help others to know if I end up coming off my medication. It might help others if I bring ECPR back home, and I feel like in order to do that, I need to be physically and mentally strong. And I'm somewhat mentally strong in navigating if I do feel distress for myself, but I don't know if I'm mentally strong to face some of the stuff that might be some of these unanticipated consequences of that which I feel this energy to do. Developing some of that equanimity that Tom Wooten talks about, and having a physically strong body. Right now I feel out of shape and slightly overweight, and that's not really good for going back and trying to do what it is I want to do. To sort of feel my best in my body and be mentally and physically strong would be the most beneficial. So I've somewhat told myself that after my birthday, I'm going to put some more effort into eating healthy and getting into some form of shape. And perhaps I'll share more of that as opposed to this whole abstracting stuff. Though I do want to look through it and make sure I didn't miss anything really good. I've been looking at it and seeing that there's a lot of stuff that I see that I've already talked about, or it's just not that interesting. Maybe it was at the time when I wrote it down. And that could be one thing, is just writing stuff down and then taking pictures of the pages and sharing it on my blog. I think part of the reason to do that is that some of the stuff that I say sounds like it could be from somebody else, maybe, I don't know, but just showing the process a little bit, showing that there's this other source of information that we connect to as people who are bipolar. And that's part of what this is too, is just to show what it's like to have a bipolar brain, and maybe other people will resonate with it somewhat, and it might show ways to actually harness the process in a way so it doesn't get out of hand and take on a life of its own, and then take away from one's life. Because I've been in spaces where I write stuff down and I literally feel like I'm going to have a panic attack. That was years ago. So it's a process, and that was part of the process, was to share that there's something else happening, and it's not just this meaningless mental illness, and it's something that one can have a relationship with. One can have a relationship with this other information coming through, and this process to me shows that relationship somewhat, and shows that it doesn't really have to even mean anything. It's just like, in a way, one could see oneself as almost having this addiction to this other information that we're not making up ourselves. It's not really an addiction, but I'm just saying there's this urge, there's this urgency, there's something there, there's this energy that drives us to write this stuff down. And we write it down, it doesn't even feel like our own, yet when we read it, we have this desire in a way to make some sense out of it. And maybe it doesn't really make any sense. Maybe part of it is just to have that relationship with it, so the energy doesn't make us feel like we want to explode in a way. If we can write and listen to ourselves, then maybe we don't feel so much like, oh, I need somebody to listen to me, I need to change the world. Maybe it's just changing one's own world by having some sort of relationship with this information, these insights, this other way of seeing, these visions. And maybe the what to do with it will come about one day. Because I pretty much established with myself that it's an unending, unlimited process. And now, instead of it taking me over and running my life, which it hasn't for a long time, I can sort of tap into it and turn it on if I want, and then turn it off. Sort of like we can close our eyes if we don't want to see. It's like turning that sense off. And I really do feel like it's this other dimension of the human mind. And even Krishnamurti said that in his quote. And to me, it's just incredible that he says those things. Yet, to me, it's so obvious that this other dimension of the mind is trying to boot up. But the trouble is, there's more people in the world that this is not happening to. And when they see this happening to people, they get scared. And they do something that messes up the process instead of just remaining curious and open and unconditionally loving. And that's all stuff that's part of ECPR. So to me, ECPR could even be providing space for those brains who have this flowering of their brain happening. Go through the process and see what happens. Nobody knows what happens, not even the people who are going through it. And we don't know what happens when we provide space for a lot of people to have this dimension of their brain open up instead of closing it off. And I don't think that has been done at all, because even with what is being done right now that's considered good, and it has some value, is still filtering and warping people's brains back into fitting into society, as if society is the gold standard. And I don't think it is. I think there's a gold standard opening up in our brains that we have not even begun to scratch the surface of what it can do. And providing safety, psychological safety, is one thing, but when I move into something beyond that, I really want to support people to really move into their magic, move into their superhuman capabilities, which we don't even know what that is, but we really have to provide the space and love for that to happen. The human brain really needs this space and love and non-judgmentalness, or I don't know what's going to happen. Well, things are already happening. We're just not really making the connection, and people won't, because the human brain only thinks about itself. It doesn't think about the human brain as a whole of humanity and other entities that are conscious, and it's just a gong show, really. And in saying that, I need to transform myself into my superhuman version of myself, which might not look very much different. And partly one of the promises I made when I was still in the map conscious state the very first time, it was so intense. I felt like I was dying. I felt like I was in a coffin. I could hear people at my funeral, but I was laying there next to a friend, and I immediately just jumped up, and I thought I said out loud, "I stand up for my niece." And I sensed in myself that I need to be the best I can be for my nieces and other innocent young children who, at this point, don't stand a chance in life, even if they get the best of what life has to offer. If I'm alive and something happens to somebody that I care about, I would not let this happen to them, what's happened to me. I would not. I would know better. And so I feel like this whole thing is done. Like, this way of treating people is done. It's going to be made obsolete. So the real question has nothing to do with mental health. And Krishnamurti's quote again is it possible for human beings to bring about a totally different dimension or category of the mind? And I really feel like this is already happening. The mind, the totality, Gaia, is putting people into these states to energetically animate us in this different way to bring about this other dimension. But unfortunately, it wears out, and then the way it's received as a person is falling out of it, prevents it from taking hold. Because really what that needs, what that seed brain who's going through that transformation needs, is unconditional love and space. And something else will happen. Then if someone's judged and labeled, obviously if somebody's judged and labeled by some kind of professional, what is their trajectory versus this other way? And it really is an act of faith by people who don't know what's happening, to be that supportive and trust that something good is going to happen. Can we go from labels to love?